Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Everyday English Channel with Tom and Kate. We're really happy to have you with us today.
Yes, it's great to be here again. And today we're going to focus on something very practical, daily phrases, the kind of English you hear all the time. Not big vocabulary, not complicated grammar, just simple phrases that people use naturally in everyday conversations.
Exactly. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these calm and realistic English conversations, you can subscribe to the channel or share this episode with someone who's learning English. It really helps the channel grow, and we truly appreciate it.
So let's start with something very simple. Think about how often you hear phrases like, "How's it going?" or "What's up?" These are daily phrases. They're short, they're informal, and they appear everywhere.
Yes, and what's interesting is that learners often understand these phrases, but they don't always feel comfortable using them. For example, if someone says, "How's it going?" the answer doesn't need to be long.
Exactly. You can say, "It's going well," or "Not bad," or "Pretty good." These short answers are completely natural.
Another phrase you hear all the time is, "Sounds good." People use it constantly. If someone says, "Let's meet at 6," you can answer, "Sounds good." It means you agree. It's simple and flexible.
And there's also "no worries." That one is very common, especially in informal situations. If someone apologizes, you can say, "No worries." It means it's not a problem.
Yes, for example, "Sorry I'm late." No worries. Very natural.
Another daily phrase is "I'm not sure." This one is extremely useful. Instead of staying silent when you don't know something, you can say, "I'm not sure." It keeps the conversation moving.
That's true, and it sounds much more natural than trying to build a complicated explanation.
Something else you hear constantly is "it depends." This is a powerful phrase. If someone asks, "Do you like working from home?" you can say, "It depends." Then you add a short explanation.
Right. These phrases are small, but they make your English sound real.
Another one I like is "that makes sense." When someone explains something and you understand it, you can say, "That makes sense." It shows you're following the conversation.
And if you don't fully understand, you can say, "I see." Even if you're not completely sure, "I see" works as a small reaction.
Daily phrases are not impressive. They're not advanced, but they're everywhere.
Exactly. And that's why they're important. When you use these short reactions and expressions, your English sounds smoother and more natural.
Think about how often you hear "actually" at the beginning of a sentence. People use it to correct themselves or add something. For example, "Actually, I changed my mind."
Or basically. That's another very common word. Basically, I just stayed home. It introduces a summary.
These words are not difficult, but they appear constantly in real conversations.
Another phrase that's everywhere is, "by the way." People use it to change the topic slightly. For example, "By the way, did you call Sarah?" It feels natural and smooth.
And if something surprises you, you can say "really" or "no way." These are small reactions, but they make conversations dynamic.
Yes, and learners sometimes focus too much on big sentences and forget these small connectors and reactions.
Exactly. But conversations are built on these small pieces.
Let's take another very common phrase. "I guess." This one is interesting because it shows uncertainty, but in a soft way. For example, "I guess we can try." It's less strong than "we will try."
And then there's "kind of." People use it all the time. "I'm kind of tired." It softens the sentence.
These are the types of phrases you don't always learn in textbooks, but you hear them constantly.
Another one that's everywhere is, "That's true." When you agree with someone, you can say, "That's true." It's simple but very common.
Or, exactly. That's a strong agreement word.
And if you don't fully agree, you can say, "Maybe." That keeps things polite and open.
The goal with daily phrases is not to memorize a list, it's to start noticing them.
When you watch a series, listen to a podcast, or talk to someone, pay attention to these short expressions.
Over time, you'll start using them naturally.
And that's when your English begins to feel less like something you're constructing and more like something you're participating in.
What's interesting about daily phrases is that they often act like glue in conversations. They don't carry the main information, but they connect ideas smoothly.
Yes, for example, phrases like "you know" or "I mean," native speakers use them constantly, not because they are necessary, but because they make speech sound natural and spontaneous.
Exactly. Someone might say, I was, a bit tired yesterday. The phrase, doesn't add new information. It just makes the sentence flow more naturally.
And "I mean" is often used to clarify something. For example, "It was difficult, not impossible, but challenging." It gives you a second chance to explain your thought.
Another phrase you hear everywhere is, to be honest. People use it to introduce a more personal opinion. To be honest, I didn't like the movie. It signals sincerity.
And then there's "at least." This one is very common too. "It's raining, but at least it's not cold." It softens a negative situation.
These phrases are powerful because they help you react quickly without building long sentences.
Let's talk about something that happens all the time in conversations: hesitation.
Yes, hesitation is normal, and daily phrases help manage hesitation.
For example, instead of staying silent when you're thinking, you can say, "Let me think," or "That's a good question." These are completely natural.
Exactly. If someone asks you something unexpected, saying, that's a good question, buys you time. It sounds confident, not nervous.
Another very common reaction phrase is "I don't know." Simple, honest, and useful.
And if you want to soften it, you can say, I'm not really sure. That sounds a bit more natural in many situations.
Something else we hear constantly is "it's up to you." This phrase is very practical. If someone asks, "Where should we go?" you can answer, "It's up to you." It gives the decision to the other person.
And then there's that works. If someone suggests a time or plan, you can say, that works. It means it's acceptable.
These short phrases make everyday interactions smoother.
Another group of daily phrases appears when we respond emotionally.
For example, "That's great," or "That's awesome," or "That's too bad." These reactions show interest without long explanations.
Yes, and you don't need advanced vocabulary to sound natural. That's nice is often enough.
A very useful phrase is "it happens." When something small goes wrong, you can say, "It happens." It shows acceptance.
And if you want to encourage someone, you can say, you'll be fine, or don't worry about it.
Daily phrases also help you end conversations politely.
For example, I've got to go, or I'll talk to you later. These are extremely common and useful.
And something you hear constantly is "see you." Sometimes people just say "see you" without adding later. It's informal and friendly.
Another phrase that appears everywhere is no problem. If someone thanks you, you can say, no problem. Very simple.
Yes, and sometimes people say, sure, just sure. It means yes, but in a relaxed way.
These words might seem small, but they build rhythm in conversation.
Think about how often you hear right. People say right to show they are following. It's not a big word, but it keeps the conversation moving.
Or, okay, that one appears everywhere.
Exactly. If someone explains something, you can respond with okay or right or got it. All of these are daily phrases.
Got it is another useful one. It means you understand.
What makes these phrases powerful is that they reduce pressure. Instead of searching for complex sentences, you rely on small, natural building blocks.
And when you combine these small phrases with simple sentences, your English feels much more fluid.
For example, instead of saying something long, you might say, I'm not sure to be honest, it depends. That already sounds natural.
Yes, you're combining short expressions in a very realistic way.
And once you start noticing these phrases around you, you realize how repetitive everyday English actually is.
It's not about knowing thousands of advanced words. It's about mastering the small ones that appear constantly.
One thing that makes daily phrases so useful is how flexible they are. The same expression can work in many different situations, which is why you hear them constantly in everyday conversations.
Take the phrase, fair enough, for example. People often use it when someone explains a decision or gives a reason for something. You might not completely agree with the explanation, but you understand it. And saying fair enough shows acceptance without creating tension.
Another very common phrase is, that's fine. On the surface, it's extremely simple, but depending on the tone, it can mean several things. Sometimes it shows agreement, sometimes it shows acceptance, and sometimes it even expresses a little disappointment.
That's something learners often realize later. Daily phrases are small, but tone changes their meaning a lot.
Exactly. And another phrase that appears everywhere in conversation is I get it. It's very similar to I understand, but it feels more relaxed and conversational.
For example, if someone explains why they were late, you might simply respond with, I get it. That response shows understanding without sounding too formal or serious.
These small reactions are actually very important in conversation because they keep communication moving naturally. Without them, conversations would feel stiff and mechanical.
In everyday English, people are constantly giving these small signals to show they are listening and following.
Another interesting category of daily phrases appears when people need a moment to think. Instead of staying completely silent, people often use short expressions to create a natural pause.
For example, someone might say, let me think for a second, or that's a good question. These phrases give the speaker a little time while still keeping the conversation comfortable.
Similarly, when people truly don't know something, they often respond with very simple phrases like, no idea. It's short, informal, and completely natural.
These little expressions help reduce pressure during conversations because they allow you to react immediately, even when you are still thinking.
You also hear many daily phrases when people express agreement or mild reactions to what someone else says.
For strong agreement, people might say things like exactly, absolutely, or totally. These words show enthusiasm and support.
But when agreement is softer, people often choose phrases like, I see your point, or that makes sense. These reactions acknowledge the other person's idea without sounding too strong.
And when someone wants to disagree politely, They often soften the response with phrases like, "I'm not sure about that," or "I'm not completely convinced." This keeps the conversation respectful and friendly.
Daily phrases are also extremely useful when people want to change topics or guide the conversation in a new direction.
For example, the phrase, "by the way," is very common. It allows someone to introduce a new subject without interrupting the natural flow of the conversation.
Another phrase people use frequently is anyway. You'll often hear someone say anyway when they want to close a story or move forward to something else.
For instance, someone might tell a long story and then finish with, "Anyway, that's what happened." That simple word signals that the story is finished and the conversation can continue.
There are also many daily phrases related to making plans or responding to invitations.
If someone proposes an idea and you like it, a simple phrase like "I'm in" works perfectly. It's short, enthusiastic, and informal.
If you want to decline politely, you might say something like, "I'll pass this time." That expression sounds friendly and respectful.
These short responses help conversations move smoothly because they communicate decisions quickly without long explanations.
Clarification phrases are another very useful group. When something is not clear, people often ask simple questions like, "What do you mean?" or "Could you explain that a bit more?"
And when someone wants to confirm that they understood correctly, they might begin with a phrase like, "just to be clear," before repeating the idea.
These expressions are extremely common in everyday conversations, especially when people want to avoid misunderstandings.
When you start paying attention to everyday English, you realize that conversations are not built mainly from long, complex sentences.
Instead, they are built from these small phrases and reactions that appear again and again.
They help people respond quickly, guide the interaction, and show understanding without effort.
And once you begin noticing these daily phrases, you start hearing them everywhere, in conversations, podcasts, films, and even in your own speech.
Another interesting thing about daily phrases is how often they appear when people react emotionally to something small.
For example, imagine someone tells you a short story about their day. Maybe they say their train was delayed or they spilled coffee on their shirt in the morning. The reaction usually isn't a long explanation. It's something very simple like, "Oh no," or "That's annoying," or "That's unfortunate."
These reactions are small, but they make conversations feel human.
They show that you're listening and that you care about what the other person is saying.
Sometimes the reaction is positive instead. If someone shares good news, people might say things like, "That's great," "That's awesome," or "That's really good to hear."
These phrases appear constantly in everyday English, and they help conversations move naturally without requiring complex vocabulary.
Another very common type of daily phrase appears when people want to show encouragement.
For example, if someone is worried about something, a very natural response might be, "You'll be fine." It's short, supportive, and very common.
People also say things like, "Don't worry about it," or "It's not a big deal."
These phrases help reduce tension in conversations. They show that the situation is manageable and that everything is okay.
In many cases, the goal of these phrases is not to solve a problem, but simply to reassure the other person.
Daily phrases also appear frequently when conversations are coming to an end.
This is another moment where English speakers often use very simple expressions.
For example, someone might say, "All right, I should get going." That sentence signals that the conversation is finishing.
Another very common one is, It was nice talking to you.
You'll hear that phrase in many situations, especially when people have had a short conversation and are about to leave.
Sometimes people also say, "I'll talk to you later," or simply, "see you."
These closing phrases are important because they end the conversation politely and naturally.
What's interesting is that many learners focus mostly on grammar and vocabulary, but these daily phrases are actually what make conversations feel comfortable. Without them, conversations would feel very direct and mechanical.
Imagine if every sentence in a conversation was only information. I went to work. I finished my project. I returned home.
Technically correct, but not very natural.
Daily phrases add warmth, reaction, and rhythm to the interaction.
And once you start noticing these phrases, you realize that everyday English is actually quite repetitive. The same small expressions appear again and again. That's nice. That makes sense. Fair enough. Sounds good. No problem.
These phrases become familiar very quickly, and once they become familiar, they become easy to use.
One of the best ways to learn them is simply by listening.
Listening to conversations, podcasts, films, or even people talking around you.
The more you hear these phrases in real situations, the more natural they start to feel.
Eventually, you don't even need to think about them. They appear automatically when you speak.
And that's an important point.
Fluency doesn't always come from knowing difficult words.
Very often, fluency comes from being comfortable with simple phrases that connect ideas and reactions.
These small expressions help you participate in conversations without feeling pressure to speak perfectly.
And over time, that comfort builds confidence.
So if you're learning English and sometimes feel that your vocabulary is still simple, that's completely fine.
In fact, simple language is often the most natural language in everyday conversations.
What matters is being able to react, respond, and connect with the person you're speaking to.
And daily phrases are one of the easiest ways to do that.
Thank you very much for spending this time with us today.
We hope these examples help you notice how small expressions appear everywhere in real conversations.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel or share it with someone who is learning English too.
It really helps the channel grow and allows us to continue creating these conversations for you.
Thanks again for listening.
And remember, keep speaking English every day.